Everything's gone to a crisis point. It's now full-out civil war. Khamenei dropped all pretense of democracy. It's now full-on dictatorship, fueled by blood, oil, and oppression.
The dominant format for documentary storytelling is television, right? So most documentaries are told on television in 50-minute slots. And this way of documentary storytelling, that is dying.
Do not believe the lies.
The traditional television documentary viewer is getting older and older. And so there's a real challenge to attract a younger audience. A lot of these issues that are presented in the documentaries are still very relevant, but we need to find new ways to engage the audience. So Collapsus is an attempt to reach out to a younger audience or an audience that wouldn't normally watch a traditional documentary.
People tend to consume media and entertainment and information in smaller bits and pieces, in smaller forms, while at the same time the subjects that you want to cover get more and more complex. If you read a newspaper article about the future of energy, it's so dry, it can get so academic that lots of people just neglect it. And that's also a reason for a lot of news media to stay away from these abstract and complex issues.
Oil is cheap, cheaper than bottled water.
No, Amir, that wasn't us.
We like to look at hybrid forms, to mix games and animation and fiction and documentary. So in that sense, Collapsus is very much, you could say, even a milestone project for Submarine, because it's the weirdest hybrid monster we've ever created. It brings together all these different genres and formats.
This project started out and it really was about the transition of fossil fuels to alternative energies. And my personal take on that was that I lived through the blackout in New York City in 2003, and also I was in New York during September 11th, during the attacks there. So I really got a firsthand look at how fragile society is. I started to realize this isn't just about society collapsing, it's about everything collapsing. It's about how technology is collapsing, how all these platforms are merging, and how all this media is collapsing onto itself. So that's why it's called Collapsus, which is really Latin for collapse. I mean, a lot of what we're doing in Collapsus is sort of influenced by what's happening culturally. And so I always look to music, sort of the remix culture, the mashup, all these things. And then I just sort of look in a very simple way of the way that I'm consuming media, which is that, you know, usually if I watch TV, which is rare, I usually have my computer open. I might have music playing at the same time. I'm usually on the internet searching something. So there's this whole multitasking approach to media right now that we're really trying to integrate into this experience. How we experience a project is really sort of dictated by the user interface. So in that sense, I was very involved with the design of that.
We needed to integrate three elements. There is a part fiction film, there's an interactive part, and there's a sort of a documentary information part. The challenge for us in designing the interface was to make it one whole experience.
Over 1 million get stranded down there in the dark tunnel, so
this is the final version
train,
of the site,
get in a lift, or do anything
which
since
is
it could all go dark again
feel.
like that.
The only thing you have to do is move your mouse towards that area. The film will pause and you get into this area here. This is the interactive part. It's almost a buttonless interface, or you don't really have to click. It's quite intuitive. You move from film to interactive, back to film, or to the interview and blog part.
You could question, is Collapsus documentary or just a fictional story? And I think, like, this project started out as a documentary, but I think you have to understand what the nature of this documentary is. It's a documentary, but it's a documentary on the future. So when it's really reporting on current affairs that has a very high impact on people or on society, it can be dangerous to mix, or you have to be very clear when something is reenacted or when something is fictional, when something is true. But since Collapsus is documentary on the future, there's, well, it doesn't make a lot of, you cannot report on the future, right? So you have to, it is speculative already. So I think in that sense, it's very useful to mix up fiction and documentary, because it's probably the only way to get a deep understanding of what the future might look like.
Whenever you make something, you want to reach an audience. And I think one of the exciting things for me is that since this has come out, it seems to keep on finding a new audience. People keep on discovering it, and we keep on getting more and more feedback from it. And I think that there's a real hunger for this type of entertainment, and I can't wait to do the next one.